The hospital, a place of healing, a place of hope. For many, it is a sanctuary where the sick are tended to, where the injured find solace, and where the weary are given a chance to rest and recover. The sterile smell of antiseptic, the soft hum of medical equipment, and the gentle murmur of nurses and doctors working tirelessly to save lives create an environment of trust and care. But for some, it became a place of horror, a place where the shadows seemed darker, the silence more ominous, and the very air thick with an unspoken dread. The walls that once echoed with the sounds of healing now whispered secrets of unspeakable acts, a heartbeat away from death. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor, a sound that usually signifies life, now became a countdown to the inevitable. Each beep, a reminder of how fragile life truly is and how quickly it can be snuffed out. That's how close the patients on her ward were. They trusted her. She was their nurse, their angel. With a gentle touch and a reassuring smile, she provided comfort in their darkest hours. Her presence was a beacon of hope in the bleak landscape of illness. Little did they know she was the angel of death. Behind that comforting facade lay a sinister intent. Her eyes, once seen as kind and compassionate, now revealed a chilling coldness. The very hands that offered solace were the same that orchestrated their demise. This is the story of Kristen Gilbert, the woman who twisted the sanctity of her profession into a macabre game of life and death. Her weapon? Epinephrine. A drug meant to save lives, now turned into an instrument of death. With each injection, she played God, deciding who would live and who would die. Her motive? A deadly cocktail of power and attention. She craved the chaos, the adrenaline rush of emergency situations, and the spotlight that followed. The more lives she took, the more she felt in control, feeding her insatiable desire for dominance and recognition. This isn't just a story about death. It's a chilling reminder of how the very institutions we trust can harbor the darkest of secrets. It's about the thin line between care and cruelty and how easily it can be crossed. It's about the darkness that can lurk beneath the surface, hidden in plain sight. The evil that wears a mask of benevolence, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The evil that can hide in plain sight. In the end, it's a story that forces us to question the very nature of trust and the unseen dangers that may lie just a heartbeat away. Kristen Gilbert was unremarkable. She blended into the fabric of everyday life, a face in the crowd, unnoticed and unassuming. Her neighbors would describe her as polite, her colleagues as competent, and her friends as reliable. But beneath this veneer of normalcy, there was a hidden darkness, a side of her that no one could have imagined. A seemingly ordinary woman from Massachusetts, she lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where everyone knows each other, and nothing much ever happens. It was the perfect setting for someone who wanted to hide in plain sight. But behind her normalcy hid a mind capable of unspeakable acts. Her eyes, which seemed so kind and gentle, concealed a darkness that was slowly growing, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. Born in 1967, her early life was ordinary. She grew up in a typical 1960s neighborhood, surrounded by the familiar sights and sounds of suburban America. There was nothing in her childhood that hinted at the darkness that would later consume her. Yet, somewhere along the way, something shifted. A darkness bloomed. It was as if a shadow had slowly crept over her sunny disposition, changing her in ways that no one could understand. The cheerful girl from the neighborhood was gone, replaced by someone much more sinister. This wasn't a monster born but created. What twisted her psyche? What desires festered within? Was it a series of unfortunate events, or a gradual descent into madness? The answers are complex, and perhaps we will never fully understand what drove her to commit such heinous acts. To understand the killer, we must understand the woman. Her need for attention, her thirst for power. These were not just fleeting desires, but deep-seated needs that drove her actions. She craved recognition, and she would stop at nothing to get it. These desires, these needs, would ultimately lead her down a path of destruction, a path that would leave a trail of pain and suffering in its wake. Kristen Gilbert's story is a chilling reminder of how ordinary can sometimes hide the most extraordinary evil. The white uniform, the gentle smile. Kristen Gilbert was the picture of compassion. She joined the Veterans Affairs Medical Center in Northampton, Massachusetts in 1989. A beacon of hope for the sick and vulnerable. She was good at her job, too good. Patients under her care seemed to die, more than usual. Whispers began. Coincidences, they said. But were they? Gilbert thrived on the attention, the chaos, the power she held over life and death. Suspicion. It starts as a whisper, a feeling. At the VA hospital, the whispers grew louder. Nurses noticed, doctors noticed. Patients died under Kristen Gilbert's watch, and not in a peaceful, expected way. Their deaths were sudden, violent. The whispers became questions, then accusations. Gilbert, they alleged, was injecting patients with epinephrine, overdosing them, sending them into cardiac arrest. But was it true? Or was it just a case of overworked staff grasping at straws? The investigation began. Section 5. The unraveling. The authorities descended upon the hospital. The FBI, the police. Every death, every chart, every word spoken by Kristen Gilbert scrutinized. Evidence mounted. Witnesses came forward. They spoke of Gilbert's strange behavior, her fascination with death, her eerie calmness during emergencies. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, revealing a chilling picture. This was no longer a case of negligence. This was murder, and Kristen Gilbert was the prime suspect. Every investigation has its hurdles, doubts, dead ends. Gilbert maintained her innocence. Her lawyers argued there was no direct evidence, just circumstantial. The prosecution built its case. They had the statistics, the suspicious deaths, the witnesses, but they needed more. They needed to get inside Kristen Gilbert's mind, to understand what drove her, what demons lurked behind her eyes. To understand a killer, you have to get inside their heads. What makes them tick? What are their fantasies? Kristen Gilbert craved attention. She reveled in the chaos she created. The deaths weren't just about power. They were about control. Her victims were her puppets. She was pulling the strings, playing God. The investigation delved into her past, her relationships, her mental state. They discovered a pattern of manipulation, deception, a need to be the center of attention, even if it meant taking a life. The trial was a media frenzy. Kristen Gilbert, the angel of death, on trial for the deaths of 4 patients. The prosecution laid out their case, the evidence, the motive, the sheer coldness of her actions. The defense fought back, attacking the credibility of witnesses, highlighting the lack of direct evidence. The jury listened, they deliberated. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. Finally, the verdict: guilty. Kristen Gilbert, the woman who had sworn to heal, was convicted of murder. The impact of Kristen Gilbert's crimes was profound. Families shattered, trust broken. The community was left in a state of disbelief and sorrow. Parents lost their children, spouses lost their partners, and friends lost their confidants. The emotional toll was immeasurable, leaving deep scars that would take years, if not decades, to heal. The sense of security that once enveloped the community was now replaced with a lingering fear and mistrust. The community reeling from the realization that a place of healing had become a hunting ground. The hospital, once a symbol of hope and recovery, was now tainted with the memories of Gilbert's heinous acts. Patients and staff alike were haunted by the knowledge that someone they trusted had betrayed them in the most unimaginable way. The very walls of the hospital seemed to echo with the cries of the victims and their families. Gilbert was sentenced to life in prison. The courtroom was filled with a mix of relief and sorrow as the verdict was read. Justice in the legal sense had been served, but for many it was a hollow victory. The memories of the lost loved ones could never be erased, and the pain of their absence would forever linger. The sentence brought closure to some, but for others, it was just the beginning of a long journey of healing. Justice, it seemed, had been served, but the scars remain. Memorials and vigils became a common sight as the community came together to mourn and remember the victims. Flowers, photos, and heartfelt messages adorned the hospital grounds, a poignant reminder of the lives lost and the pain endured. The community's resilience was tested, but through their shared grief, they found strength in unity. The case of Kristen Gilbert, the Angel of Death, serves as a chilling reminder that monsters don't always lurk in the shadows. They can be people we see every day, those we trust with our lives. Gilbert's actions shattered the illusion of safety and trust within the healthcare system, leaving a lasting impact on how we perceive those in positions of care and authority. They can hide in plain sight, masked by normalcy, blending seamlessly into their surroundings. The facade of kindness and professionalism can often conceal a darker, more sinister reality. The case of Kristen Gilbert is a stark reminder to remain vigilant and aware, even in places where we feel most secure. Their true nature, a terrifying secret waiting to be revealed. The story of Kristen Gilbert is not just a tale of crime and punishment, but a sobering lesson on the hidden dangers that can exist in our everyday lives. It urges us to look beyond appearances and question the true intentions of those around us, ensuring that such a tragedy never happens again.